Hey everybody, this is Nervings, and I'm here to rank every song on Connorissupergoofy's final album, which is called Wonder. Wonder Farewell Edition, rather. Now, initially, Connor released this album with just 8 songs on it last month, but he released that song with 8 tracks, and now he's released it once more with 12 tracks, and that's because he's decided to quit music, and so he's added the 4 songs that were going to be on his album onto this album. So that's why this album, despite having 8 songs initially, now has 12 songs. Now let's just rank these songs. We got Entrancement, which I'd say is honestly a high 6 to a low 7 out of 10. And the day I actually listened to the original 8-track album, no, I went to a water park in Round Rock. But either way, this song reminds me the most of my time at the water park because I came home that day and listened to Wonder, and this song reminds me the most of going to the water park. But besides that, it's also just a decent instrumental song, and I honestly might even listen to it outside of the context of the album. That's something I can't say for a lot of instrumental introduction songs. So, Entrancement, I know that Connor said it's one of his favorite instrumentals he's ever made, and I'd have to agree because it's pretty dreamy and the pads sound pretty good. So yeah, Entrancement a pretty good song, especially for being an instrumental. I'd say it's a low 7 out of 10. And here we got I Know All Your Secrets, which is one of the 4 songs that came out just on the Wonder Farewell version. The main pad line for I Know All Your Secrets is decent. I know all your secrets. I can't wait to reveal them. The chorus is okay. This is just a typical Connor song, more or less. I'd say the lyrics are the most Connor lyrics that you could expect. And this one is probably the most underwhelming of the 4 songs that got added to Wonder that we're going to be on at. So I'd say I Know All Your Secrets is probably a high 6 out of 10. I think I'd rather listen to Entrancement, probably. And I also think that Connor has a lot of songs in the style of I Know All Your Secrets, so that does kind of knock it down. And then we got For the Sake of Keeping It Simple, which is just a 30-second interlude. And I think, honestly, if this song were removed entirely, the album would probably be better and more consistent. Because then you'd have the energy of I Know All Your Secrets, followed by I Hate It, and then by Enemies. And I think all of those songs have the same sort of tone. All those songs have the same sort of tone, and I feel like For the Sake of Keeping It Simple, while an interesting and ambient, good sounding interlude, honestly it doesn't have that good of a place in the album. So that's why I'd say it's a high 5 out of 10. It sounds good for 30 seconds, but it honestly takes away a little bit some of the consistency of the album. As the album itself isn't all too consistent in terms of sound, I think removing this would help with that. But yeah, for the sake of keeping it simple, the 30-second interlude is a 5 out of 10, but it's a high 5 out of 10. And then we got I Hate It with Senpal. I always get the two mixed up. I didn't know until recently that I was supposed to call Senpal. But regardless, I Hate It is definitely one of the better songs on this album. The cathartic energy is there. Especially on Connor's part. Connor sounds much more cathartic than Senpal, although Senpal's part doesn't sound bad. It sounds kind of quiet, although I think the autotune in Senpal's part sonically contrasts well with the catharsis in Connor's part. I hate it, I hate it, I hate it, I hate it. It's got a decent chorus too. So I'd say I Hate It is more of a high 7 out of 10. I also believe that the Senpal part contrasts sonically pretty well with Connor's part to the extent that I think the auto-tune tool that was used in Senpal's part probably could have been used more frequently throughout the song instead of just that one short Senpal verse. Because I believe it contrasts pretty well with Connor's sound. So yeah, I Hate It is a high 7 out of 10 and definitely one of the better tracks on this album. with a decent vibe to it. And then we got Enemies, which is a pretty underwhelming track, honestly. I wouldn't have minded if this one was cut out either, much like For the Sake of Keeping It Simple, which is probably why I'd put it as a high 5 out of 10. So Enemies, it has typical Connor writing, I'd say, although I feel like there's a bass and nothing else. Like this song definitely feels unfinished. It feels like Connor came up with the lyrics of the song before the beat, that's for sure. It definitely feels like this is an example of someone coming up with the lyrics of the song well before the beat, and then halfway through just deciding, screw it, it sounds good enough. And it's not that bad of a song, but I say it's a high 5 out of 10. And matter of fact, I'd rather listen to For Sake of Keeping It Simple rather than Enemies, because I have sort of the same sentiment that Enemies, if it were taken out, the album would probably have a more consistent theming throughout. So I'd say Enemies is the worst song that I've ranked so far and is more of a high 5 out of 10. Whereas For the Sake of Keeping It Simple has been moved up to a light 6 out of 10. And then here we got The Doghouse featuring Me. And the piano in the song sounds pretty good. I feel like the chorus, this is the doghouse, you know just what it is. I feel like the chorus is a little bit repetitive. And I know that Connor said in his video reviewing Wonder Farewell Edition that he didn't like his part necessarily because he thought that he sounded a bit too overdriven. I do sort of agree with that. I think he sounds ever so slightly too overdriven, but it's honestly not that big of a deal. He still sounds decent. And as for me, I think I did good on my verse, but not amazing. And this was also the only song that I've ever recorded. Matter of fact, the only verse I've ever recorded that I didn't record in my car. I recorded it in my closet yelling at the top of my lungs. So I'd say the doghouse, I've just been moving it around, but I actually do think it's one of the better songs on this album. I'd say it goes toe to toe with I Hate It, in my opinion. I Hate It is a lot more cathartic, but the doghouse, I also believe that it was a good single. It was a good first single to drop from Wonder just after we released Life After Graduation. It wasn't just after, it was like a couple months after we released Life After Graduation, but I think it was a good transition away from our collab album and into Wonder. So Connor did a decent job. I think I did a good job. It's got a good beat, good vibe. I think it's up here with I Hate It. I'd say it's a high 7 out of 10. And then we got Nothing, which as far as I know is Connor's favorite song on this album. And I can't say that I agree, to be honest. I think just the contrast and the beat and the vibe of how the chorus and the verses sound. The chorus sounds so different from the verses, and it caught me off guard the first time I heard it. It honestly has some it's a little bit amusing just how different the chorus sounds from the verses. It has shock value and it's amusing. But I honestly don't think the song itself, despite the shock value and the funny value of the chorus, is all that great. I think especially in the third verse, where Connor brings up Nate Flores, who was a classmate of both of us in English senior year of high school. After the themes that we explored and explained in our collab album Life After Graduation, it feels weird to bring up Nate Flores after how we promoted Life After Graduation as we did, and after we explored the themes we did in that album. I'd say just to summarize the song is probably a leftover, and I wouldn't be surprised that this song, or if this song was a leftover, and Connor just decided to make an obnoxious chorus for the hell of it, I wouldn't be surprised. So I'd say Nothing is on the lower end of this track list, and it's more of a high 5 or a low 6. I'd give it a low 6. It's not, I'd say it's probably better than Enemies. It has more value than Enemies, but I don't think the song itself is that great for the reasons that I've stated. And then River Jams, I've listened to the song once because I gave the Wonder Farewell edition with the complete 12 tracks a listen before, just before I started to rank these. So I've only heard the song once, but based on that, I'd say River Jams has a good beat, although I think the term River Jams is probably repeated at least 40 times throughout the song. So I guess my biggest nitpick of this song, despite it having a good beat, is just that River Jams is a term that's used too much. My biggest criticism is that the term River Jams is used too much. And I feel like Connor's tone probably could have sounded like it fits. Connor's tone could have sounded like it fits the beat better, but it's still not a bad song. I'd say River Jams probably ranks around. I'd say it ranks below I Know All Your Secrets, just because I Know All Your Secrets, despite it not being a super notable song, it's still a sort of typical kind of song that you would hear on most of his albums, except for anything before Cheese Egg Omelet, maybe. No, I'm going to expand on that point. I think this song, I Know All Your Secrets, could have been a song that was released from Connor the Mega album onwards. But back to River Jams, I definitely went on a rant there. I think River Jams is in the mid range of the album just because it has a good beat and it's sort of catchy, but I don't think anything else about it is that great. And then we got Real Kid Fighting Mushroom, which is definitely the song with the most random name. And Connor addresses that in the second verse. This is definitely a song where Connor's writer's block, which is a big part of the reason why he quit making music. Connor's writing block is definitely shown in this song, like it is with a few other songs on this album, like Enemies. I'd say Real Kid Fighting a Mushroom. I like the chorus of it. I think it sounds bluesy. And apparently, Connor said in this video ranking his own album, not ranking his album, but going over this album, that he got the idea for Real Kid Fighting Mushroom from a dream, but it didn't necessarily sound like it did in the dream. Regardless, I think the song is ambient. I think it's bluesy, especially the chorus. And bluesy is not a word that I can use to describe much of Connor's music, to be honest. So I think Real Kid Fighting Mushroom is one of the better songs on this track list. I'd say it's below I Hate It and The Doghouse, but besides that, I'd say I'd actually put it above Entrancement. Yeah, I would. And then we got Dishonest. The beat with the piano does sort of remind me of Pretender, but the song's not as good as Pretender. I'd say Dishonest. Even though the beat isn't as good as Pretender, I actually think that Connor's flow in the song is pretty good, at least at the start of both of his verses. So I'd say Dishonest probably ranks above these songs. I would give Dishonest a high 6 out of 10, but a very high 6 out of 10, not quite a 7. I think it ranks below a song like Entrancement, despite those songs being hard to compare, because Entrancement is an instrumental and Dishonest definitely is not. Regardless, Dishonest could have been executed a little bit better because it just feels like a worse Pretender. But I honestly don't mind that because I like Pretender so much. So I think Dishonest is a high 6 out of 10. And then we got Tribute, Connor's version, which is which is the song that Connor got inspired by me by. I don't know what I just said, but Connor was inspired by my song Tribute, which is almost 5 minutes long, that I dropped on BandLab, and it's only on BandLab still. I won't release it anywhere else, but I released my song Tribute that was almost 5 minutes on BandLab the day that we graduated from high school. And so Connor was inspired by my song Tribute to make his own song Tribute. And this song happened to be much longer. It's about 8 minutes and 30. And with the amount of detail that Connor goes into, and just the fact that I feel like it's poetic that he repurposed the beat for Dear Carlos, which is a beat from a song that no longer exists. He repurposed the beat for Dear Carlos for a beat of a song that summarizes all 4 of his years of his high school experience. So because of that, I think Connor's Tribute is definitely the most memorable song from this album, not just because of its length, but because of its style of writing. That I know Connor was inspired, or that I know Connor got inspiration from my song. But regardless, I think this is the best song on the album, frankly. And then we got the last song, The Sweetest Dream. I don't have much to say about this one. It's a decent closer. I don't think I would listen to it outside of the context of the album, like Entrancement, but it's still okay. I think I would place it about here, around For the Sake of Keeping It Simple. Nah, it's above that because of the point that I made earlier, For Sake of Keeping It Simple, being that despite it sounding good, it would have been better if it just weren't in the album. The Sweetest Dream is a good closer. It would have been better if The Sweetest Dream stayed in the album, and I can't really say that for the sake of keeping it simple. So I think that is my ranking. Most of these songs are pretty jumbled up together in the 6 out of 10 and 7 out of 10 range, but as for the album itself, Wonder, you can sort of tell that Connor didn't really intend when he was writing most of the songs on the album, whenever he did, that it was going to be his last album. You get songs like Tribute, which summarize his high school experience. But as far as the sentiment of leaving the music, or I guess not making music anymore, as far as the sentiment of quitting music goes, the song Tribute is the farthest that, or is the closest that comes to it. I think Enemies is the worst song. I feel like Tribute is the best song. Even though Connor took inspiration from me, I think he took that inspiration and made it something better. Because I think the song is better than my song, frankly. But the album itself, I think, deserves a light to decent 6 out of 10. Transition? Yeah, I know I'm not Anthony Fantano, whatever. I think I'll settle on Wonder by Connorissupergoofy being a decent 6 out of 10 because despite the obvious flaws, like the obvious writer's block in a lot of songs, and the inconsistencies from track to track in a lot of places, and perhaps most importantly, despite being Connor's last album and last set of tracks, you could tell that in no point in the songwriting process of most of the songs, if not any at all for that matter, you could tell that in no point in the songwriting process did Connor think that the album was going to be his last album. But despite those problems, I would still say that the album's a decent 6 out of 10. So that's about it. See ya.